Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
On every episode of Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing Astro Bot and Final Fantasy XIV.
Ah. But then what did I play?
Yeah.
Ho, 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 ho.
Oh, I played Final Fantasy XIV in Astro Bot.
Oh. Is that something you can do in Astro Bot?
There are so many games in Astro Bot that I can't figure out what all of them are. So,
You may have played it. You may have played Final Fantasy XIV without even realizing.
Yes, I definitely have encountered Final Fantasy, because one of the things in Astro Bot is there's like an entire, 30 years of Sony history. Characters sort of personified as the little bots that Astro Bot is trying to find. And most of them I don't recognize. So
most of them?
Yeah, the Nathan Drake one I sort of figured out right away. The Parappa the Rapper and things like that I kind of got. Like Jack and Daxter were fairly obvious, but like there's a lot of them where it's sort of you get like a vague hint up in the corner that's something kind of like, kind of something kind of sarcastic and funny. Like if you're a giant Sony nerd, you're supposed to immediately go, oh, it's that guy from that game that came out 22 years ago.
Yeah. Yes, that character.
But more often than not, I'm like, who has a coat and black hair? I don't know who that is.
Oh, you don't remember the famous coat and black hair man from the PlayStation game?
I just assume it's Bloodborne. It's got to be Bloodborne, right?
That does sound like Bloodborne. Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, that's surprising that Sony acknowledged that Bloodborne exists.
So yeah, not to sort of spoil my Astrobot section of the show, but a lot of that game is me going, ho ho ho, something from Sony's history that I also don't recognize.
He was like, oh, it's the guy driving the hovercraft from Wipeout. I remember that guy.
Yeah. Which is, I suspect, is a lot of people's experience with like Smash Brothers, where you're like, ooh, Ice Climbers. Is that a game?
I think that's how I discovered Ice Climbers.
I think it's how I did as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, the further you go back into the vault, I think the less likely it is that I'm going to figure out what the heck you're talking about.
I have a lot of thoughts about the Smash Brothers-ification of Sony history in this game, but we can get to it during the Astro Bot segment.
Sure. I am pro Astro Bot, but this is the one part of the game where I'm like, I don't know if that quite works for me.
Yeah.
Anyways, welcome back. It's been a little while. How are things, DJ?
Been a bit.
Yeah.
Been good.
We've been doing stuff. I traveled, went to a foreign country, which was exciting.
Traveled the world.
Yeah. And then we had like work things happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
unfortunately.
Because I need a job to be able to travel the world. So yeah, we've had some delays and some little speed bumps in being able to get back on the mic here, but we're excited. We're happy to be back and grateful for those of you that hung in there.
Yeah. So welcome back to you as well, the listener.
Oh, okay.
In case that wasn't clear. Oh, and yeah, welcome back to you, Randy.
Well, thanks, DJ. I appreciate it.
Welcome back to the country. They let you back in.
They did. Yeah. Yep.
How often do you go out of the country?
Rarely. Yes. I don't think I've been. I mean, Canada and Mexico. Do those count? Those are out of the country, definitely.
Sure.
More frequently then. So yeah, I've been to Mexico 3 or 4 times in my life. I've been to Canada like 20 times in my life.
20 times?
A lot. Definitely.
What do you do in Canada?
There used to be a music festival in Montreal called.
Oh, okay.
Well, what was it called? It's gone now. I can't summon it from my brain. But it was every summer, and it was like 4 days of like goth, industrial, new wave bands, and it was awesome. And I never missed it for as long as it existed, and then it stopped. But I was also in French club in high school, and they used to take us to Montreal and Ottawa a couple times a year.
And abandon you there.
Yeah, so we could use our French skills.
Learning. Yeah.
Correct. Yep, you got it. So a lot. I mean, I grew up in New England, so Canada was not a super far drive.
That helps,
only a few hours. Yeah.
That makes
sense. And then for much of my the early years of Video Game Hangover, I lived in upstate New York. So again, fairly easy to get into Canada from there. So
sometimes you just walk outside and take a wrong turn and you be in Canada.
I can see Canada from my house.
Yeah. Jeez.
That was a deep pull. Sorry.
I was like, no, it was Russia, right?
It was Russia. That's right.
Canada.
That's right. Yeah, because she lived in Canada. That was who I don't even know who you're talking about.
Don't you live in Alaska? I mean, I would hope she probably see Canada too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. She was from Alaska. I don't know.
I forgot that person existed.
I put that person out of my brain. Yeah.
Yeah. God, what a nightmare. I'm so glad that our national situation is recovered from the depths that we were at that point.
Sure. Yes. We only have sane politicians from that point
Things
forward.
have only gotten better.
Yeah. All right. Let's not start that. But yeah. So not very often, but this most recent trip, we went very out of the country. We went to London, England, and Amsterdam, which is in Holland, and then we went to Bruges, which, if I remember correctly, is in Brussels, Belgium. Someplace with I think it's Belgium. Yeah, someplace with a B.
Was Jean-Claude Van Damme there?
Yeah, it was twice the Van Damage, DJ. Yeah. There was, it was awesome. We had a good time. I didn't do a lot of video gamer related things. We went to a video game shop in London, and it was very collectory. It was a lot of like, impressive games, new and sealed packages behind glass, and nothing I could afford or wanted to even sort of like take back to America with me. But yeah, that was about it. That was about the sort of the extent of my video gamer related things. I brought the Switch thinking I would have tons of downtime between flights and train rides and things like that to play games, and did not even power it on once.
Oh.
So it was not a gamer-friendly vacation.
Well, that's good. I mean, I always do the same thing. I'm just like, I gotta bring the Switch because you gotta bring something.
Yeah.
And then I just don't end up using it, which I'm like a little disappointed about because I'm always imagining, I gotta get so much gaming done in my free time. But afterwards, I was like, oh yeah, I was too busy doing interesting things wherever I was that I didn't even need this thing.
My logic too, yeah, I can play video games just about anywhere. I don't have to go to England for that. So, yeah, I just figured, it's a long flight, and we had a crazy long train ride at some point in between, and it's supposed to be vacation, so I figured some part of it would involve me sitting in a deck chair.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know what you should have done? You should have brought your charged up your 3DS and see if there's anybody still street passing in England. Yeah. Get some weird Euro tags.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Some out of the country tags. But yeah, not a lot of gaming happened on vacation, which was good because a lot of other fun things happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share, or anything you can talk about, or are you keeping it all under wraps?
Yeah, no, I mean, we did, I've been to London before. So like the first time we went, we did a lot of touristy things. So this time it was more about like, we were trying to find cool bakeries and restaurants, and we were trying to find, what was the thing that we had? We were trying to search out. Oh, there was a thing called John Soane's Collection. And he was a turn of the century architect. He built something very famous in England. But he was also like a world traveler and a bit of a gentleman explorer, and collected a lot of things in his giant house. And he had so many things in his giant house that he bought his neighbors' houses to fill them full of eclectic and interesting things from around the world. And one of the conditions upon his death was that you can't touch anything, but we want to open it up to be a free museum so people could admire his collection posthumously. And so we toured all three of his houses and saw just amazing and cool and interesting things from all over the world.
Well, that's a very British thing to do.
It was, yes. Yeah, we did have that sort of moment where we're like, did they just give you this or did you take it?
It's like, oh, no, I found all of this. That's fine.
Right, yeah.
Don't take it, by the way. Just leave it in my house.
Don't ask follow-up questions about how I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was so sort of like connected and revered that he had at one point acquired an Egyptian sarcophagus, bought it outright, paid cash money for it.
Okay.
And
I don't know if it's like the owner of that sarcophagus was finally willing to part with it for that.
Sure. with the Egyptian government, presumably. But I didn't ask follow-up questions. But he had like a 3-day long party when it came to his house, and what is it called? The Prime Minister of England stopped by to check it out as well. So yeah, it was a big deal. He was a big deal, and just kind of an interesting character and a bit of a rogue. Really liked his dog. Had like tiny little paintings of his dog all over his house, and had a giant monument in the memory of his dog out in the garden outside. And it's just kind of an interesting dude that I really had never heard of, obviously growing up in America, but really learned a lot about and I enjoyed touring his many houses and seeing all of his cool things from his travels around the world.
John Soane, you said?
John Soane's collection. Yeah.
John Soane's collection.
Yeah. But then what else? We went to Amsterdam and did a bunch of kind of fun things. Did the canal ride, of course, which you have to do, and went to a few coffee houses. And, when in Amsterdam, you partake.
Coffee houses, yeah.
Coffee houses, yes, had some air quotes, coffee. And then Bruges was awesome. Bruges is basically sort of a functioning medieval city, and there are breweries everywhere. We were told by one of the tour guides that there were 3,600 breweries in Belgium. And basically like every town has at least 3. We went to a really cool place called the Beer Wall, and it was just like thousands of beers from all over Belgium. So we just got a couple of flights and tasted a bunch of beers and stumbled out into the gray, frosty afternoon. It was a really good time. We had a very nice vacation.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
It's my kind of vacation.
Skip it's
all
good.
The super touristy stuff and just hang out.
Yeah. We did sort of like drive-bys of touristy things. We did a lot of sort of like, oh, hey, you can see that thing from here. That's fine. I don't need to get any closer. I certainly don't need to wait in line for 45 minutes to go on the London Eye or anything like that. So we avoided most of those kinds of things and just did kind of fun off the beaten path stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. It was good. It was a good time.
Cool. It's been a long time since I went to Europe, but I'm just like, I should go to England.
Yeah.
I should do a beer flight in Bruges.
London's a very cool city. It's massive, and it's I never quite sort of wrapped my brain around it in the time that I was there. So just trying to navigate, I always sort of felt like I didn't quite get proximities. Like, oh, that seems like it's not far, and then it would be like a 2-hour drive to get there. So yeah, there was it's quite a thing, and just navigating, driving one on the other side of the street. And just driving in a city that is so full of buses and bikes and cars and just really just insane drivers. I could not fathom having to deal with that. We took an Uber to...
Were you? Oh, I was going to ask if you were driving.
Oh, no. But... God forbid. No. We took an Uber.
That's ambitious.
There was a thing we had read about that was rooftop cinema. It was a film club, but you could, as a member of the sort of public, you could go for certain screenings periodically. And it was a high rise in the city that I can't remember the name of. And they showed movies on the roof when it got dark. And it was really cool. But we thought it would be super close. It looked like just a tiny little skip on the map. And then it took like 40 minutes to get there through just the most insane navigation and traffic I've ever seen in my life.
Ugh. Well, you couldn't take the tube or whatever it is?
Not easily. I think the way that we had like mapped it out, it was a couple of trains, and then it would have been like a 26-minute walk or something like that, which is not terrible. But we were like, let's just get a car. Yeah, I don't know. Vacation.
Yeah. I'm
Treat
not
yourself.
sure about... Yeah, exactly. I'm not super familiar with how extensive like the underground coverage is in London, so I just kind of assumed it went everywhere. It's probably better than a lot of cities in the US, at least.
Yeah, it does seem like the public transportation in England sort of like will get you there if you're willing to sort of like navigate it to its natural intricacy. It was a lot of sort of like take this train to this station, get out, walk across the street, get in this other train to this other station, and then get on a coach which is what they call a bus, and take that one for 45 minutes and then get on a boat. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Just wait, now they're just messing with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, get on this like little like trolley car or whatever. It takes you up the mountain.
We had to get to Waterloo Station at one point, which is their like Grand Central Station. Essentially, it's the giant transportation hub, and it literally was like 2 trains and a bus to get just to Waterloo, and then we had to get a train from there to the next destination. And I was like, you should probably just get a car to take us to Waterloo and figure out the rest. So, and we had our luggage with us at that point, and I was not going to drag it across 2 trains and a bus.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of that. Google Maps, man, was awesome. It would like show you all of your stops and exactly where to get off. And it had a little countdown that was like, you're going to get off this bus in like 6 minutes. And like the little stops on the way would light up inside the app. So definitely if you are in any foreign country, I guess I can't speak to that, but if you're ever in England, definitely Google Maps will get you there. It's good.
Oh man, the last time I was in England, smartphones did not exist. So at least everything was in English. But I was just thinking, like, I've done probably the majority of my international travel post smartphone. And I feel like it would have been just a completely different experience before that. Would have been maybe borderline impossible. So it's kind of miraculous that we're able to even do that.
I distinctly recall the first time Sarah and I went, very early 2000s. We were walking around the city with paper maps. We did have sort of like a...
Yeah, just like the quintessential tourist just fumbling around with the map.
Oh, totally, yeah. It was like Lonely Planet. Do you remember Lonely Planet? It was like 48 hours in London. It was this little map that unfolded, and it was like cool things you should see in 48 hours. And so yeah, I distinctly recall us walking around the city with a paper map, trying to figure out where the hell we were and where we were going. And yeah, smartphones have been, horrible for a lot of reasons, but I think getting around foreign cities, I think is the best use case for, a universe of information at your fingertips.
Yeah. Man, I think that Lonely Planet guide was the one I took to Japan the first time.
Oh, cool.
I was just like, oh man, a book. How novel.
Yeah. Those were always the Lonely Planet was really cool because it was never about like going to, the Eiffel Tower or Big Ben and stuff like that. It was always kind of off the beaten path, non-touristy kinds of things. And at some point I do want to see some of those things, but I don't need to see them over and over again. So if I have a second opportunity to go to a cool foreign country, show me some unusual things. Yeah.
Show me stuff that's like 5 or 6 on the list, not up there with the Eiffel Tower.
Right. Exactly. A lot of my vacationing is trying to avoid hordes of screaming children and their families.
Just children specifically?
Children specifically. Adult tourists are one thing. I'm an adult tourist, so, but yeah, people trying to drag their kids through anywhere, some foreign country, the beach, pick a mall, pick a tourist destination. I just can't deal with that. I certainly don't want to go on vacation with other people's kids. So yeah, I think definitely being able to navigate vacations without having to deal with like high traffic, very touristy, family friendly things.
Yep. Well, that makes sense. I mean, trying to avoid all the big tourist spots in general, I think it would just naturally keep you away from all the screaming children. Yeah, definitely. My parents like to travel. They took us on vacations when we were kids. That was kind of fun. So we were definitely that family at some point. But as an adult, it's just really difficult for me to want to hang out with other people's children. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that was like a great vacation to me. Yeah. We had we're going to talk about video games at some point, I promise. But we had a vacation a couple of years ago where we did like an adults only all-inclusive kind of thing. And did not see a person under 21, I think, for a week and a half. And then we had 2 days afterwards in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I think. And I had enough points from my Hilton Club to be able to get us 2 nights at some resort.
And I was like, free room at a resort, and we don't have to fly out for 2 more days. So let's just do that. And it was like every kid we didn't see for vacation was here.
It was like, the name of the resort was Walt Disney World.
It was not that, but I think maybe it was Walt Disney adjacent, because it was just hordes of kids. Yeah, I was like, oh no, we've made a horrible miscalculation.
Well, they'll teach you to go to a resort.
But anyways, we're back. Nice to be back in America, despite our many faults. It is the country that I love.
Hey, well, good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you missed a lot of stuff when you were out, but then it's just been a while since we recorded a show. I imagine you've caught up at this point.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah, there was like a Tokyo Game Show, and the Switch 2 has leaked, and maybe.
Yeah, another one of those possible Switch 2 things.
There's a new Yakuza spinoff.
Yes, there is.
Yep. Yakuza Kiwami is coming to the Switch.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yep. And it's a game I've never played.
Ooh. I don't know if you would be into it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be either, but yeah, more Yakuza is always a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad that. I mean, I was kind of surprised that they hadn't really released any of those on the Switch. And I was reminded that they attempted, I think, Yakuza 1 and 2 on the Wii U, and then just complained that it didn't do very well.
Oh, interesting.
Probably at the time was like a reasonable reaction, but in retrospect, it's like, well, maybe that's because you released it on the Wii U.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they're giving Nintendo a second look with the Yakuza series.
Nothing on the Wii U did very well. So,
yeah.
Yeah. What else? What other sort of giant gaming headlines? Concord.
Concord happened. Concord came and went.
Yes, exactly. In the time that I was away, it came out and then was decommissioned.
Yes.
Yep. That was an interesting 2-week period.
That was, God, what a nightmare it must be just being anywhere working in the video game industry, unless you're like at the very top, because then, you're just causing the disaster for everybody else.
Right.
But man, I can't even fathom how soul crushing it must be to work on a project. They said they were working on it for 8 years or something like that.
Oof.
And then it comes out and it's just first of all, nobody's playing it. Some people played it, not literally nobody, but just doesn't catch on like you were hoping. And then not only did they pull it off stores, but now it's that's what it's known for. That's awful.
Yeah. This is the legacy of the thing you spent 8 years working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I just ugh.
Yeah. There's been a lot of really interesting writing about video game hierarchy and how decision-making works at a company that big and things like that has sort of come out in the last week or so. That's been really, awful, but interesting to sort of see behind the curtain of this thing that is still very kind of secretive sometimes and weirdly shielded from public eye. So yeah, it's abysmal that anybody spent any amount of their life working on a thing that just sort of landed with a thud. But yeah, maybe it will get video game companies to make better decisions and find better leaders and, maybe steer more into visionary directors rather than video games assembled by a committee.
I don't know if that's necessarily the solution, but, I think smaller projects and not always chasing sort of the big trend is good. Because I think so. From what I've read, is that Sony has put so much stock into all these live service things. And basically, if any single one of them takes off on the level of Fortnite, or not even Fortnite's an extreme example, but if even just one of them sticks, it totally makes all the rest of the investments worth it, even if they have to cancel all the rest of them. So I'm just man, that is depressing. Just sort of playing video game studios and initiating projects you're playing in the stock market or something. They just gotta have a diverse portfolio of live service games in the works.
Yeah, that's hard. I I don't know. I'm not the target audience for live service games, so it's most of them kind of land with a resounding meh for me. But yeah, I mean, there was nothing about any of what I saw about Concord that seemed compelling to me. Every now and then there'll be one of those little like looter shooter trailers will pop up, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun. That looks interesting. But yeah, what was that Sony event a couple months ago that they sort of revealed Concord with like a full motion video trailer that was just sort of like a total snooze fest. And I'm like, somebody spent millions of dollars to make this thing, and it did not achieve anything it wanted to do. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. I hope they're able to make something out of it. Like, I imagine that, like, the only reason they would pull it, hopefully, I'm like just trying to stay optimistic about it, is that they are taking their time to go back and sort of like refine it and form it into something that will be more accepted by people and like more sustainable. But who knows? I also reminded of like there was that whole Amazon project. It was like an online like team shooter, a hero shooter that came out for a weekend and like got pulled after a very short amount of time.
Oh, really?
And I don't think that ever came back. Like I don't remember what that one's called, but just kind of amazing how many of these things just pop up and then vanish without a trace afterward.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it would be hard to sort of imagine a world where like, oh, Concord's out again and it's different this time and you should trust us. And people get on board with that. Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to go free to play and indulge people who are just kind of mildly curious and then blow them away and find a way to charge them money for something. Right.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if anyone thinks sort of the cost benefit analysis of spending more money on Concord is to do exactly that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. You're probably right. We may never see the hide nor hair of this game ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope they were able to do something with it because they've invested just so much mental energy into it at this point. But yeah, now it's just got like this whole stigma hanging over it.
Right. It's a bit of a punchline now, and that's hard to come back from.
Yeah.
The internet both loves and hates a meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am reminded of I want shorter games with worse graphics made by people who are paid more to work less. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that one.
Yeah, me too. Big fan. So yeah, maybe that's the future of this thing.
I would hope so. Yeah. What else happened? They announced a whole new PlayStation while you were gone.
Oh, the $700.
The internet loves it.
Yeah. I don't know who that's for. It's not for me.
No, you're not going to trade in your old PS5 towards like a down payment on the PS5 Pro.
Yeah, that was a thing. Somebody said like, there is a PS5 Pro. It is $700, and it's sort of priced for people who want to trade in their old PS5 for a $250 credit or whatever to like make it a more reasonable acquisition. And I'm like, that's insanity. If you're building video game consoles based on that churn at GameStop, that's just a really wild way to sort of approach things.
It's amazing because it's like you turn in your already very expensive video game console just to make the new one the cost of a normal video game console. For a pittance. You could put it on, I don't know, your front porch and probably make more money off of it. But yeah, someone's still trying to sort of justify the existence of GameStop. Yeah, I don't know. Initially I was wondering because I didn't even get into the PS4 generation until they brought out the PS4 Pro, and I don't remember that being catastrophically expensive.
No.
Like I felt like that was a reasonable price for a souped up version of a console. But so I was like, oh, maybe when they announce a PS5 Pro, I will do the upgrade thing. Who knows? This has not happened to me before. And then I was just like, oh no, that's very expensive. And also I hardly use my PS5 at this point to begin with, so I don't know what I would be playing.
Right. Yeah. Prior to Astro Bot coming out a couple weeks ago, I had not put a disc in my PS5 since the Backlog Attack 2023.
Oh,
because the game that I last played was still in the drive, so I had to take it out to put Astro Bot in. So yeah, it's been a year since I've played something on the PS5. Sorry, what number are we on?
People don't even know what number it is.
Nope.
And it doesn't help that all the stuff that they showed in the sizzle reel were basically remasters of PS4 games. It was very confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which on some level, I'm kind of like, sure, why not? Like, maybe there are just no more console generations at this point. We're all just playing the same games over and over again anyway, and you want them to be, you want them to run slightly better. But man, that is an expensive machine. I don't know if I'm ready for it yet.
Yeah. I did have a moment where I was like, well, what does it do for $700? And I started reading and it was like AI. I'm like, of course it's AI.
Is that like, what is it doing with AI? Is it like frame generation or whatever it is?
Correct. Yeah. AI frame generation. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but yes, it was something AI with like predictive frames and stuff like that. I'm like, ugh, gross. I'm just going to play Animal Crossing on my Switch.
See, I feel like a lot of that stuff, a lot of the, now I remember. I watched the whole like Digital Foundry analysis on this because they have that, it's like PlayStation super sampling, whatever, but the acronym that they came up for it is just like pisser or something. Just like, well, that's too bad. But I feel like a lot of that is for people who are playing on like an enormous 4K TV and need the absolute highest frame rate, which I sort of opted myself out of a long time ago. So it's not even like, you know how I just had $700 burning a hole in my pocket? I don't think I would get the extra value out of it. Although maybe I could get a few extra frames out of Dragon's Dogma 2. That might be nice.
No, you have to immediately go to playing The Last of Us, a PS4 game on it. Or, you know, what's the other one they're remastering? Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm like, wait a minute. Are we nostalgic for things that happened 5 years ago?
I was like, that game already looked pretty good. What are they going to do to that game?
Yeah. Now with more gigaflops or whatever.
More pores on her face.
I
don't know.
Whatever.
You'll zoom all the way in.
Yep. But cool. Listen, if you want a $700 PS5, go for it. That's why there are a lot of different things on the shelves at video game stores.
If Sony wants to send me one, so I can talk about it on the show, that's fine to me. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that. That's the end of that.
You're open to bribes, is that?
Yeah.
Get some of that PSVR going too.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I want. Will it be better at running the PSVR 2 that I don't have yet?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I hope so.
It would have to be, right?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying, like, oh yeah, it just runs VR worse than the previous one.
It does everything worse than the other one, yeah.
Yeah. But no, yeah, so I'm not in the market. I don't know if anybody is at this point.
We have a couple little headlines. I was going to say at the top of the show here, but we're clearly sort of at the middle of the show.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We should go over that stuff.
Yeah, we want to mention that we are going to get back in the cycle of streaming games on Monday nights and coming up in just a few days, Monday, September 30th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we are going to play Inscryption. It is spooky season. October is upon us. And DJ and I are going to kind of roll out the red carpet for all the creepy things in our game collection. Kicking it off with a little Inscryption.
Yeah, that's what I had a whole bit for the start of the show leading into spooky season. Now we're like half an hour in. You want to just start the show over? You want to just go back to spooky season?
Some quality content there. I don't, yeah. You'll have to edit it. Do it in post.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll put it back in. So yeah, everybody really enjoyed that section at the start of the show that they have now all heard. No, but we're gonna I'm excited for spooky season. We're kicking it off a little bit early with this Inscryption thing, but I've been waiting for so long. I feel like I was very busy last year around this time, so I didn't get to fully partake in the spooky season, so I just gotta make up for lost time. And I haven't played Inscryption, so I'm looking forward to checking that out.
Nice. Yeah. I will be there for moral support. I've played Inscryption, but I'm kind of curious about DJ's first experience with it, so I'll be there to provide color commentary and cheer him on. So go to twitch.tv/VGHangover on Monday, September 30th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time for our live stream. And you can always jump into our Discord and get a little more information on that and save the date on our little upcoming event.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing we would love you to save the date on is Extra Life 2024. We're doing it again.
It's happening.
Yep. 11th year, I believe. Does that sound right?
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah. You beat me to it.
So that is Saturday, November 5th. DJ and I will be streaming and playing video games all day to raise money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals in our areas.
Yeah. Wow, you got all of it in there.
Did I get it all in there?
Yeah.
What's the hospital you play for? That's out near you, right?
The Cottage Children's Medical Center in Santa Barbara.
Nice. And I do the Penn State Children's Hospital in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So yeah, always a great event. Always super fun to be able to play games together, play games with folks from our community, and try to raise a little bit of cash for this awesome charity. So, yeah, more on that to come. We just want to kind of get the date in your brain right now and let you know that it is right around the corner. We're just that first weekend right out of spooky season. We'll be spending the whole day in 2 different time zones playing lots of video games.
Yeah. I'm just double checking. Oh, wait. It's November 2nd.
Oh.
So I was thinking, because it's like right after Halloween. So I was like,
I get 5th.
Doing the math. That might have been what it was last year. But anyway, so it's the weekend after Halloween. First weekend in November.
the 5th is like a Tuesday or something. Don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, it would be amazing if we're still going on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, anyway, just put it in your head. Extra Life is happening again this year in November, and we will definitely be talking more about it in the future.
Yep. And more details about that at our Discord as well. And we'll share stuff here, certainly, as we get closer and closer.
Yeah. Gonna be good. It's always a lot of fun.
And yeah, definitely. It is a thing I look forward to every year. There's a band that is playing not far from us that Sarah and I both really like on that day, and she's like, we should go, and I'm like, no, I have things to do. I have commitments. I can't miss an Extra Life. So
yeah, you have a charity event.
Yep, I have to do something charitable.
Yeah,
all the children that I didn't want to spend my vacation with, I'm trying to raise money for them.
You have to make it up to them.
Yep, I've gotta give back.
They were all waiting for you in Bruges. Just like the guy who, sends so much money to our hospital every year is coming here. And it's like, no, he's just going to the bar again.
Just going to the beer wall. So we should talk about games we've been playing.
Just like, I'm going to change my children's hospital to whatever the children's hospital in Bruges is.
Is it international?
No, I don't think it is. I was actually looking up whether there's like an international like chapter or whatever of Extra Life, and I don't know if there is. But I think it's primarily Children's Miracle Network is a US based thing.
Gotcha.
We'll just have to figure out another date to do the 24-hour Bruges live stream.
Right.
Good.
From one of 3,600 breweries.
Yes. Oh, it's going to be good.
So I have been playing the aforementioned Astro Bot.
How is this?
It's really good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, moving along.
So what do people know about Astro Bot? So like this was now this was not. There was a free Astro Bot game that came with the PS5, and it was a tutorial basically of how to use your controller and video game form, because that was sort of the new DualSense came out with that platform. And it was kind of a demo for how your controller worked. But it was also like an interactive, you were assembling an interactive museum of kind of Sony history in the guise of this cutesy little puzzle platformer. And everybody really, really liked it. I mean, I would stand by the observation that it might be my favorite PS5 game.
Ooh.
It is.
That's rough.
Yeah. It's very short, though. It's just a few hours long. There's some hidden collectibles to go back and kind of clean up and stuff like that, but you can see the whole thing in under 5 hours. But it's free for the cost of the game. Well, for the cost of a PS5, you get this cool built-in, packed-in experience. And, you know, there are not a lot of free video games that come with consoles anymore.
True.
So yeah, I think since then people have been like, it was also a VR thing with Astro Bot that I've never played. People have been clamoring for like a full-size Astro Bot experience. And it was kind of stealth drop during that same presentation where they teased Concord for 7 minutes. They also showed the first Astro Bot trailer, if I remember correctly. And yeah, and we were all suitably excited. Fast forward just a few weeks, the game came out, and it got killer reviews. It's one of the best reviewed video games of the year. I think it's an average of 96 on OpenCritic right now, which is a pretty good place to be. There were a lot of like very lofty comparisons made to sort of the best of Nintendo in the initial reviews. And yeah, as I'm playing it, it very much feels like a Super Mario Odyssey or a Mario Galaxy level of polish and intricacy in this fun little 3D platformer.
You think that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it doesn't really have like the characters in a way that Nintendo does. There's like always like this kind of emotional attachment to Mario and Luigi, all of those other little, Mushroom Kingdom people that any of us who kind of grew up through the 80s and into the 90s and to today kind of have in our brains and hearts that certainly Astro Bot doesn't get to sort of like capitalize on. Instead, what I think it tries to capitalize on is just sort of general Sony nostalgia. And that's very much, for me anyways, your mileage may vary kind of thing. I've not always had Sony consoles. I've been pretty good about getting them for the last couple of generations, but I wasn't Team Sony initially. I was Team Xbox when it was the Xbox versus PS2 war. So there's definitely like a blind spot in my in my Sony history. And I think a lot of the little collectibles and kind of in-jokes in Astro Bot really truck on you knowing that kind of stuff, or at least sort of being, a tiny bit nostalgic for like PS2 games that I've never heard of. So yeah, I end up being very confused sometimes with some of the references. The more modern ones, there's definitely there's a chunk of things that are very kind of God of War influenced, and there's a little bot that is clearly Kratos with a giant axe, and you have a whole collection of themed levels and collectibles based on Greek mythology and things like that, which is kind of fun. There's an Uncharted level where they basically turn Astro Bot into Nathan Drake, and he's got like a paintball gun, and kind of turn the game into a shooter with a bunch of collectibles and, platforming and stuff like that. So like, I get those things because those are fairly modern references. But the further back you go, the more lost I am, I think. There's, the hook of the thing is you're trying to sort of find hundreds of other astrobots that have been lost across the galaxies. And you're also trying to sort of repair your starship that you were all flying around in, which is a PS5.
Yeah.
So you're trying to collect PS5 parts across the galaxy while also scooping up as many little robots as you possibly can and getting them to follow you back to your home base. And many of them are themed after PlayStation characters over the years. And as I've mentioned, I don't recognize very many of them. So that part, well, it's still fun to sort of like explore. I think they like when you do get one of the themed ones, because there's a bunch of sort of like just generic like Astrobot clones, and they're kind of funny, and they'll do a little dance when you rescue them and stuff like that. But in the pause menu, there's like the little outline of like the 7 Astrobots you have to save in this level. And the ones that have some connection to Sony history have the little 4 shapes logo in the corner of them. And these are like the special ones. You really want to get the special ones. And when you find them, they're a little more intricately hidden, and you have to do some more stuff to rescue them, essentially. And there's usually like some big reveal, and fireworks go off, and there's singing and dancing, and all the little Astro Bots cheer and stuff like that. And I truly, I would say 70% of them I don't recognize. So, I think if you told me specifically what game it was or what character you're trying to be, there's something in my brain would go, oh, it's from Final Fantasy. It's a Final Fantasy thing. But they don't tell you what game it is. You're just supposed to sort of get it from the cutesy little hint that's on the screen and from the outfit the character is wearing. And that is not enough for me. Sorry.
You're just supposed to know, Randy. Otherwise, you're just a fake PlayStation gamer.
So I've been trying to like screenshot them as they kind of pop up as you rescue them, thinking like I'll just start dumping them into our Discord and going, who's this one? Who is this supposed to be? Does anybody know? I've not really done any of that because I don't want to flood the Discord full of Astro Bot photos, but truly there needs to be some guide somewhere that tells me who all these characters are.
Oh, I saw a list where somebody just had
is there?
everything.
It's got to be out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Some of
all
the
of
stuff
that
I was surprised that
sort of
some of this is in there.
notwithstanding. It's a silly thing to complain about because it doesn't really like impact how fun the game is. The bottom line is you're sort of on a little spaceship. The spaceship is a dual sense controller, flying around the galaxy, landing on planets, and just doing platforming things. Bopping enemies on the heads and doing triple jumps and looking for secrets and puzzles and meeting a whole sort of cast of like very eccentric and funny characters, doing great big boss battles, which are super fun. They're all kind of pattern-based Mario battles in a lot of ways. So you're looking for the glowy red bit. You're trying to bop it a couple of times. Astro Bot gets different power-ups and different abilities depending on what level you're in. So every now and then you'll find a little treasure chest and you'll open it up and it gives you some new ability. You can either run super fast or you can punch extra hard, or you can, what were some of the other ones you could do? You get the paintball gun if you're Nathan Drake, and things like that. And those are always super fun. And inevitably there is some hidden level, like a warp that will send you off the path that you're on to some secret level that is just basically a challenge that exploits that power-up thing. And those are super fun too. And they're usually much more difficult. As you're sort of carting around the galaxy on your DualSense 5, there'll be little like little shooting stars or another little spaceship will hover by. And if you can sort of like dock with it or run into it with your DualSense on the main screen, it'll open up like 3 or 4 other little challenge levels. And they're all like the most nail-bitingly difficult, like Super Mario on steroids, platforming challenges that are super fun. And you will dump like 100 lives into trying to solve this one puzzle. But they're really good. And they're super quick about getting you back into it. And it never feels like so punishing that like, I'm never going to get it, but I just know that I'm just a hair away from being able to figure it out. So there's definitely a little bit of like puzzle platformer kind of secret sauce there, to kind of keep you hooked on it. Yeah, it's really, really well done. I've not really found anything in it that I've like, well, that part doesn't really work for me, except for the collectathon with the Astro Bots. All of the things that I would sort of want from a 3D Mario or from a Ratchet and Clank game, like this does really, really, really well. And I feel like whoever sort of assembled this thing, it's Team Asobi, and I don't really know who they are. But they like get it. They clearly have played the great puzzle platformers from history, the great sort of mascot 3D platformers from history, and kind of understand what make all of them tick. I suspect there is some, some genius who has like an encyclopedic knowledge of what made all of these sort of like great levels and these great power-ups and these great feedback loops from all of those games kind of distilled down into what kind of feels like the greatest hits of mascot platformers here.
Man, it frustrates me that this has been getting such high praise for being a platformer, because I assume that it was just a sort of like Sony self-congratulatory exercise, sort of like the previous Astro Bot, and like despite a lot of effort over the last 20 years, I just cannot get excited about any Sony character to any degree. Like, I don't know what it is. Like when they showed off whatever the Sony Smash Brothers was, like the character roster, it was just like sucked all the air out of the room. Like with each character reveal, I was just like, oh, this guy, oh, and this other guy, and it was just like the worst sort of like just the longest consecutive chain of sighs that there has ever been. And I don't know what it is about Sony characters that just does not excite me. And I feel like that is at least somewhat of a requirement for enjoying this, or at least like picking up on some of the references. Or just like celebrating PlayStation on some level, which I also think is kind of weird. I think like maybe it runs deeper than just Sony mascots, because I feel like from the just inception of PlayStation as a thing, it has always just felt so sort of like corporate to me.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Like PlayStation? That's probably the worst name that a console has ever had. And just so like lacking in personality. And it just feels like that sort of characteristic has carried through to like basically anything Sony has done around the PlayStation brand. So I have a hard time, like, as much as I like specific components of PlayStation over the years, I just can't bring myself to be excited about like, oh yeah, you're on a ship that looks like a PlayStation 5 and you got a PlayStation 5 controller. And it's like, okay, all right. I just feel like I'm in a Sony commercial the entire time.
It very much is. It absolutely is that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see that. I think it is very easy to sort of condescend to this. And yeah, Sony has never quite figured out the mascot thing in a way that clearly Nintendo pays their bills with. So it's, all of it does feel a little like focus grouped in a lot of ways. It is the sort of, for me, it's kind of the definition of like video game assembly by committee.
That's a bit how it feels to me. Like, I think probably the most I ever enjoyed a Sony mascot was like Sackboy from Little Big Planet.
Yeah. And
even that felt very engineered in a very Sony way, but like just had like just enough character that I was like, oh, maybe this is the guy. Maybe this is the one who sticks. And not like, now where is Sackboy? Like, what happened to him?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing that like me as a platformer fan, like Sony has not valued this as a gaming concept for a long time. Like the PS2 era and PS3 even, there were a ton of like Jak and Daxters and Ratchet and Clanks and ultimately sort of getting up to the PS3 era with Sackboy and the Little Big Planet games and things like that, and a bunch of other ones in between that I can't possibly think of right now. And then all of that stuff kind of went dark. Like even Ratchet and Clank at this point is still how many years on from its most recent game, which was a really, really good game, but it's not a thing that like Sony is throwing tons of money at to make over and over again. So Sackboy, to your point, is they did like a one-off platformer for him, which was a lot of fun, but I suspect not a lot of people played. They don't make core Little Big Planet games anymore, and that developer, in fact, has gone on to other things. So yeah, I think Sony is not very interested in resurrecting platformers, and here they've made the best one I've played in a very long time. So it's this weird kind of duality, and I'm sort of like, okay, it's a Sony commercial. It's clearly funded by a company that has not valued this kind of concept in video gaming in a long time. And
it's a little weird, right? Because like even as they trot out those little references, like you mentioned the Bloodborne one, I was like, oh yeah, remember Bloodborne? Like, does Sony remember Bloodborne? Who else is in there? Like, as I was going down the big list, I think it's probably on IGN or something. It was just like the who's who of like abandoned Sony properties and like tenuously abandoned stuff. Like, sure, Horizon is on there. Like, for some reason, that is the one that sticks around. But then it was like Gravity Rush. I was like, oh, I like Gravity Rush. I'm surprised that made the cut. And there was some other weird stuff like that just has like not really existed on Sony platforms for a long time, despite people seemingly still having like, like the fans remember.
Right.
Apparently. But Sony is content to just like shut down all those studios until they need a Gravity Rush asset to put on Astro Bot in the new game. And I'm not trying to sound like super cynical about this, but it's just kind of like hearing about it and hearing sort of like how it's sort of a vehicle for like PlayStation 5 and Sony nostalgia, but at the same time they're bringing back all these weird references to stuff that has sort of like just been MIA for a while.
Right. And that Sony has sort of shown through kind of word and deed that they don't value until it has some sort of nostalgic value in Astro Bot for some reason.
Yeah, it's just very confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's easy. Like I said, it's easy to sort of condescend to this and see it as a 10-hour long commercial for Sony in a lot of ways. But I mean, every Mario game is a 10-hour long Nintendo commercial, right? It's just
I don't think that's true, though. I don't think not in the same way that Astro Bot is tied to PlayStation.
Not as like a collective brand. Like you don't play. Well, I guess you do sort of in the Paper Mario games. There are always references in Paper Mario to other Nintendo franchises. But in Odyssey, which is probably my favorite and the most recent, one of the most recent ones, Mario games, it's just Mario's Mushroom Kingdom circle of friends. But all of them are so like built into our kind of collective consciousness from, living in the world that it maybe doesn't feel so cynical anymore because it's Nintendo.
Yeah, but that's so different than if, in Mario Odyssey, you had gone to, like, the Nintendo world, and there's a big, like, N64 there, and Mario's ship looks like a Game Boy.
And you play the Metroid-themed level, right?
Yeah. But, so that they keep it very, like, in-universe or whatever, which, like, makes sense to me. But it's not like... I'm struggling to think if Nintendo's ever done something like that, where it was just... Nintendo nostalgia all over the place. Maybe there's one that I'm overlooking.
Yeah. Well, there was the Wii U demo game, the Nintendo Land. Was like a greatest hits. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's not a ton of that.
That's one of the things that comes the closest, but it still feels very different than the whole Astro Bot thing.
And Smash Brothers, of course.
Yeah, but I wouldn't... Well, yes and no. Yeah, but like in that case, it's sort of like, I don't know what you call it, like a Nintendo multiverse kind of deal.
Yeah,
it still doesn't reach the point where you're flying around in a giant Wiimote.
Right?
Or did you fly around in a Wiimote in that game? I don't think so.
I
think they like stop short of the point where they like break the fourth wall and suddenly there are a bunch of actual Nintendo products all over the game.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think you did, like the Super Scope does make an appearance in there. But yeah, I don't think it's quite to the extent that Sony has taken it with Astro Bot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think of like a Mario Kart 9, is 9 the one on? Yes, 9 was 8. The Wii U one that eventually came to the Switch, right?
Mario Kart 8.
Is that 8? Okay.
Yeah, it's got the infinity symbol.
Oh, there you go. Dear. Yeah, and even that has like the Legend of Zelda themed courses, and Link is in it with his motorcycle, and there's Animal Crossing characters in it, and an Animal Crossing themed course and carts and stuff like that. But it's not like Astro Bot as Link or Astro Bot as Mario Kart. It is like those characters. Mm-hmm. It is Link in the thing. So it's not some sort of like weird off-brand cutesy Sackboy version of Link. So yeah, I think to your point of like sort of keeping them kind of in their universe, I think there's definitely sort of kind of universal truths about those characters that they sort of like defend. And it doesn't seem like Sony's as defensive about those things.
Mm-hmm,
I don't know if that makes sense. It doesn't matter.
No. Yeah, I think it makes sense. Is Astro Bot like his own thing? I guess maybe I should ask before I continue slagging on Sony, because it's like, are there like Astro Bot characters, or I don't know. I don't even know if that's important to me, but it feels like it's just an excuse to have Astro Bot dress up as a bunch of Sony characters. I've heard it described as like Sony Funko Pop, which is like, oh god, that's gross. Like, I was prepared to give them a little more credit than that.
Yeah, that's really condescending. I only because I've only played the previous one, the free one that came with the PS5, and a lot of like the enemies and things that you encounter in that are revisited or kind of upgraded or altered for the new one. Like there isn't like a pervasive, to the best of my knowledge, like in-universe villain. There's no Bowser for this series. So the little alien spaceship that basically robs you and steals all the parts to your PS5 and forces you to go across the universe trying to reassemble it is not some like known, to my knowledge anyways, in-universe villain that always sort of has it in for Astro Bot and is always kidnapping his girlfriend or anything like that. I mean, he barely has a character. He doesn't really talk. He does funny little dances and puts on costumes. So yeah, it's just cute more than anything. It's got really good music.
See, that's the thing is it's like, it just sort of feels so slight, like character wise.
Yeah. I would agree with that. But I've played the two games and they're really solid platformers. They're fun.
Yeah, so
and
that's
colorful.
where the struggle comes from. Where I'm just like, on the surface, it looks so bland and sort of cookie cutter. But then people are like, "Oh yeah, but the game was actually really good." So
but then you pick up a controller and you spend 45 minutes with it, and you're like, "Oh, I get it." Yeah.
And now I don't know what to do. And then, but here's the thing. So then I just remind myself that I don't like 3D platformers, and I'm just like, "Oh yeah, problem solved." Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sort of like the hard part of kind of recommending something like this is that you probably already know if you're into it or not. I'm predisposed to being into this. Yeah, and we're not getting a Mario Galaxy Mario Galaxy 3 or Mario Odyssey 2 anytime soon that I'm aware of. So, this
going to launch the Switch 2 with.
I'm sorry, what?
What are they going to launch the Switch 2 with? What about that secret Mario game that they've been inevitably working on?
Please be Odyssey 2. Please. That would be amazing. Yeah. I think it's, don't get me wrong, I like when Nintendo does sort of unique things. Wonder was a wonderful surprise last year that I don't think any of us saw coming, and it's not a sequel to any other previous Mario game, so it was clearly like off on their own path doing their own cool thing. So I don't need a billion sequels, but I would really like a sequel to Odyssey.
No, you want whatever the next thing is.
I don't know what that is though.
Yeah, well, see, that's why it's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, I get you.
I bet like you were just like, please make Super Mario 3D World 2. That's all I want. And then they're like, no, we're going to make Mario Odyssey instead. You were like, no, that's not what I wanted. And then it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not wrong. But I really like Astro Bot. I'm having a good time with it, despite sort of how kind of easy it is to be cynical about some of the elements of this thing and realize that I just paid $60 to be marketed to by Sony. Yeah, it's fun. It is occasionally quite challenging. It does feel like sort of the greatest hits of puzzle platformers over the years. If you like those kinds of things, you will definitely like this thing.
And I have to admit that even not being a fan of this type of 3D platformer, the extent to which people have been praising it has me a little intrigued. I'm just like, maybe if I'm going to play any 3D platformer, maybe I should like Astro Bot is such a blank slate. I feel like maybe this is the one. Maybe I'll give it a try. But I remind myself I haven't even played that free one yet. So
I mean, you have a PS5. Play the free one. It's right there. It's waiting for you.
See, that's how skeptical I am about this. I'm just like, everybody's like, play this game that's really good, despite it looking like, they're still just trying to get you to buy a PS5, despite it being on a PS5. And I'm just like, I don't believe you. But maybe at some point I'll give it a try.
Yep. I will say too that like there were early levels based on that had references to like Ape Escape and Parappa the Rapper, and I've never played those games. I don't know anything about them. I know that they exist. I kind of get the character references and stuff like that, but I've never picked up a controller and played Ape Escape before, and the levels designed around the conceit for that were tons of fun. So I don't think you have to have like a huge appreciation for God of War or Uncharted or any of this stuff to really like what Astro Bot is doing. At least it's been my experience thus far that you don't need a working, like intricate knowledge of all things Sony to be able to appreciate this. But some of these character references definitely are not going to land with you.
I do really like the conceit that the levels themed around each character like adapt the gameplay from those games, but I feel like it's probably more like somebody made a Little Big Planet level that was based on Uncharted than like actually turning into an Uncharted game, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure. I mean, there was a ton of that when Little Big Planet came out, right? It was like all of the initial levels that sort of like got memed and made their way onto social media were like, 1-1 from Mario, or somebody made a really cool Dead Space level and things like that. So it was, definitely people using the Little Big Planet tools to make versions of other video games with Sackboy in it.
Yeah. So I think if they like that's probably higher concept than they had in mind for this game, but I think, if they made a game that was actually like that, like every other level, you just play as the character from one of those games, and like the rest of the levels maybe just whatever they had in mind for Astro Bot as a thing. That would be really amazing. Because it's like in when they started adding a bunch of guest characters to Smash Brothers, I felt like they just kept getting more and more ambitious with how uniquely each of those characters would play. Like the Minecraft guy would just dig up blocks, like and like build stuff. That's like not really how any of the other Smash Brothers characters played. So, man, I would like, but I get the sense that that's not really, they didn't take it that far with this.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of it is there. In Ape Escape, you have the Ape Escape levels, you have a giant net. In the Uncharted one, you have a paintball gun. Because you can't give, Astro Bot an AK. Probably
not until you get to the Call of Duty level.
Right, I'm sure that's in there somewhere. That's I guess sort of the funny thing about sort of seeing like the Bloodborne. I hesitate to even say character, but the Bloodborne whatever person in the
hunter. Come on,
is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and one of those like the moves that you have as Astro Bot is you can kind of like slap other characters. You give them a little bump, and usually for the Sony characters, it triggers some sort of like fun animation that if you have played the game, you're like, oh, it's from the game. And the Bloodborne one does a parry. Because that's an important part of the Bloodborne thing. So if you try to slap him, he'll parry you with his giant assault rifle or whatever the hell he's got.
Yes. What does he have? Nobody knows.
I don't know. It's a thing. So yeah, I don't know. Somebody approached this with a lot of love and did a ton of research. And if you're susceptible to that, if you're all in, this will probably resonate with you in a way that it doesn't necessarily for me. But yeah, I'm still playing it. I'm still playing the hell out of it. I really have put a lot of hours in this thing in just about a week. And talking about it right now makes me want to go play it more. And that's always a fun thing to discover with video games because I tend to
that's what you want.
Yeah. A few hours in sometimes with games lately. And I'm like, nah, it's enough. I get it.
Oh man. I was really hoping it was like, yeah, you slap the Bloodborne guy and he just starts like drinking a gross bottle of blood right in front of you. And you're just like, oh God. Oh, that's why they never made another one of those games. That's disgusting. What are you even doing?
Maybe. I'm told that you can like do upgrades where you get additional animations with some of the Sony characters that are like deeper pulls. And I've not figured out how to do any of that stuff yet, but I have been trying to sort of like go back and 100% all the levels. Because there's tons of little hidden secrets and extra things. And once you go through them it gives you like a little roadmap of like how many collectibles there are. So more often than not, I will immediately go right back into the level and just try to get the ones I didn't do. I want to get all the warps because the warps take you to the fun little challenge levels with the little extra abilities that I almost called him Sackboy. The extra abilities that Astro Bot has. So yeah, I love sort of sussing out all the little secrets of this. Yeah, it's just sort of like really compelling and kind of freewheeling and fun and not at all. And even when it is punishing, it never really feels like cheap. It always feels sort of attainable. There's one level that I recently completed that was everything in it is made of glass. So if you jump or use any of your extra abilities other than just sort of running and going, everything starts to shatter around you. And then it just sort of like starts this domino effect of everything like cascading and falling apart. So then you can't stop. You have to keep going. And meanwhile, you're like swinging from vine to vine and jumping over enemies and dodging fireballs and all the other kind of crazy puzzle platformer things that you would expect from a game like this. And I, no joke, probably sunk 100 lives into this game. Like, I was going to finish it. There's no part of me that was ever going to stop trying to do it. And that is the best levels of Mario Galaxy, the best levels of Odyssey were exactly like that, like evoked that feeling in my brain.
And that 100% or 1,000 moon or whatever challenge run you were doing really changed you. Because I could not imagine you're like, oh yeah, you know what I like about Astro Bot? The challenge levels. That was very surprising.
Yeah, in my old age, something has unlocked. I've found a competitive spirit, but only when it comes to like tough as nails Mario levels.
Yeah, it's like very like bimodal platformer preferences. Just like, no, I need it to either be the easier side or just completely impossible.
Yeah. Occasionally I want like hanging out on my desert island and farming with my friends. And sometimes I just want the entire world to shatter around me while I run across it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. You should try and play Super Mario World for Extra Life. That would be something to watch.
Which one is World?
That's the one with Yoshi in it.
Oh, okay.
That one's pretty good. People like that one.
Yeah. All right. I'll put it on the list. I've taken up all the time, DJ. I apologize.
We've done it again.
Yeah. Do you briefly want to talk about Final Fantasy? Or you want to save it for next week?
I was going to tell you about all my raid drama, but no, we can come back to it.
Raid drama.
We should come back to it. It's going to take at least an hour and a half.
Oh man. All right.
No, not really, but no, we should wrap it up.
Bonus content just for our Patreons.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kidding. We don't have a Patreon. Yeah. All right. So yeah, put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. I apologize.
No, that's fine. I really wanted to talk about the PS5 Pro.
Well, done. We did the thing. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter. I guess it's called.
Yeah.
Twitter. Yeah. At twitter.com/
guy who calls it X. We don't listen to that guy.
No. Twitter.com/VGHangover. That link still works, I believe.
It does.
And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to join us on our Discord. You can hang out with us and chat about video games. We were most recently discussing how woke our game collections are.
Yes.
DJ's is very woke.
Not as woke as I was hoping. In fact, I was hoping the reason that the wokeness analyzer wasn't working is maybe my Steam collection was too woke to comprehend. But it turned out to be not the case. So I'm going to have to work on that.
So join us. How woke is your video game collection? Join us on Discord and find out. You get a link. It's
not as awful of a conversation as it sounds like it could potentially be. Yeah, it was fine.
It was fun. We had a good time. You get a link to that at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to tune into our Monday night stream on Monday, September 30th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be kicking off Spooky Month by playing Inscryption, a fun, what is it? It's kind of a haunted house escape room collectible card game.
Like a card game or something? Yeah.
Yeah.
You like Pony Island. It's that guy.
Yes. Yeah. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, anywhere else you can get a podcast. We're probably there. And maybe hook us up with a referral to one of your very good friends to listen to Video Game Hangover. Yeah.
That helped us out quite a bit. You just spread the word that way. I want to do a bit of shameless self-promotion, which is I'm bringing back everybody's favorite Spooky Saturday streams this month. Or next month, rather. But I'm getting a head start because I can't wait. I'm going to be starting Spooky Saturday this weekend on the 26th. Going to be playing Conscript, which is a horror game set in World War I.
Ooh.
And sort of the conceit of Spooky Saturday has always been like, oh, is it actually going to be spooky, or is it just going to be a game with a stupid pumpkin in it? But I feel like this one is actually spooky, so maybe tune in and watch. But that will continue all. Wait, did I say the 20? No, it'll be Saturday the 28th. We don't know how calendars work this episode, but it'll be the weekend after the show comes out, and that will continue all the way through Halloween, and then leading up to Extra Life, where there'll be some spooky games there as well. But get the link and a summary of everything that I just spit out on VGHangover.com.
Oh man, you and I are rusty.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's good. It's good. It's quality content. Yeah.
Speaking of
quality content.
Speaking of people who are rusty, speaking of people where that is absolutely not the case, if you enjoyed our intro and outro music this week, you can go to spellmynamewithebang.bandcamp.com and listen to the entire catalog of Mr. R.J. Lake, who composed for various are they spooky video games? He did the soundtrack to El Paso Elsewhere.
Yeah.
And an Airport for Dogs and Aliens. I give up on the title of that game.
One of them is very spooky.
Yeah. Some of his soundtracks are spookier than others. But anyway, spell my name with a bang.bandcamp.com for your listening enjoyment.
And if you are somehow still listening, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.